We add what?
You are live.
No, I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you are. Or there you go.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Breaking the Silence. You have a voice. I am your host, Lady V, and we have a terrific show today. And we've been talking about relationship rules, and we started off talking about compatibility. And last week, everybody got excited because we were talking about intimacy versus sex. And this week, we're going to talk about how do you keep the fire burning? And I think that that's a really, really great topic because a lot of times relationships end because the flame goes out. So we're going to talk about today. We want your input. We want to welcome all of our viewers. But before we start, we want to welcome our host, Dr. Yvonne Bennett, to the show. How are you today?
Doing well, doing well. Got a battle with the tooth thing, but I'm doing good.
Wow, I'm really liking the hair. The hair looks really great. And the sweater, everything. That's a nice look. It looks really great on you.
It's the deepest pink I could find in my wardrobe. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. And we have Pastor Melanie Butler with us. How you doing, Pastor Melanie?
I am doing well, thank you.
Good, good. And we want to give major shout out to you because you are a cancer survivor, and this is Cancer Awareness Month. So I think that we just want to say, we honor you today because you're one of the survivors, and we want to give major shout out to others who have survived also. So we just thank God for all of you. And last but not least, we want to welcome Dr. Isaac Davis to the show. How you doing today?
Hey, how's everybody doing? I'm doing terrific. Excited, blessed, highly favored, and even got a surprise for Pastor Mill this Sunday.
All right. Did we get to know, or is it a surprise? I'm sorry.
It's a surprise.
No. So I guess well, I could tell her because she still can't see it until Sunday. So hey,
exactly.
Her daughter came to our Sunday conversations, which is Jemiah, one of my greatest niece to actually have. But she came and gave her perspective of breast cancer and being a child watching her parent go through it. So it was really good. So make sure
you really want me crying.
Oh, it was good. It was good. Because they don't know what she said. But it was
That's
good.
True.
It was really good.
Wow.
That's true.
Well, I think it's amazing. We've had a show on some time ago with cancer, those who have survived cancer, and I just again, I give shout out to everyone, and even prayers to those families who have lost family members due to cancer, because some did not make it, but we're always keeping them in our prayers as well, because it is a fight, it is a battle from what I hear, and something that if you haven't experienced it, then you really don't understand. So I just want to give shout outs to those who survived, and prayers to those who lost family members, and those who are battling it today. We want you to know that, our prayers are with you and you can make it. Just stay positive and trust God. And so
amen.
Major hugs and kisses to all of those that have gone through it. But we want to talk about relationships today. We want to talk about how do you keep the fire burning? I was kind of thinking back on, even, relationships that I've had. And I think that one of the biggest things that I can say that causes the fire to burn out is lack of communication. Because we start off great. We start off, I love you, you love me, and everything is going well. And I think that what happens is a lot of times in the midst of all of that, those somewhere we change and we become comfortable. And then what happens is the one person doesn't communicate with the other person when that happens. And the lack of communication, because if I don't know, then I'm not able to correct what I don't know. So, a lot of people think when you say keeping the fire burning, they think immediately just sex, but it's not. It's everything. It's we talked about intimacy. How do I stay into you and you into me? How do we not let that go? And one of the things, and I'm going to put it out there to uh, the guys, is I think they really struggle with telling their spouses how they really feel, whether it's a weight issue or a appearance issue or whatever they see that we tend to slack on. A lot of times they won't say it. So I want to open it up. Why is that? And I see Isaac shaking his head. So you a guy, so we're gonna let you comment first.
You know, let me say this. I think that this is my opinion. My opinion. I feel that we as men have to be the first in every single thing that we want from our spouse. That is something that I believe, or in the relationship period, is that we should be the first to be the example what of what we want. And also, I feel that you should give exactly what you want back. But when you receive it back, understand that it's not going to come in the way that you gave it. It's still going to come in a way that, but you have to be prepared in your way to receive it. Uh, so, and with that, let's start with my first thing is that whatever you did to actually get the person that's in your life, whatever you did to get that person is what it takes to also keep that person.
Mm,
I think back into my marriage to Betty. That we started doing date nights. So date nights were it was fun. It was just time meant. It was set aside time that we could do whatever that we wanted to do, um, and no matter what that was. So there were times that there was opportunities that she scheduled the extra date nights, and there are times that I scheduled the date nights. So that's something that you have to do. You have to set aside that time. I remember at a young age is that when we had our son Isaac. There was a period that Betty was more focused on him and and not the relationship and not the marital relationship. And I said to her, I said, remember, even though that you are a new mother, but you still are a wife. So you have to have the balance to children when your children are in the picture, and what your relationship is and what your work life is. There has to be a natural balance, and I think that when that balance is off centered, that's where we start missing it, and that's where the lack of communication come in, like you said. And then that's when more and more issues come in, when we just simply did not realize that we have that there is a complete off balance of what our full circle is.
Well, I've talked to several guys, and a lot of times they say that they don't confront or say things because we tend to be a little combative when we're told certain things. And so a lot of times men tend to step back and not say anything because they're afraid of the response that they're going to get. So, for instance, if it's an appearance issue, how do you
Mhm.
work around that? Because a lot of times we'll stay in the relationship and we'll pretend that it's okay. And women on the other hand will go, well, what's wrong? Because we know when something's wrong. And so now we're going, well, what's wrong? I noticed that you don't talk to me as
Mhm.
much. You don't touch
Yes.
me as much. You don't do this as much. And then the guy go, well, no, there's nothing wrong, honey. There's nothing wrong. So now we have totally disconnected
Yes. That's
because
true.
one person is afraid to say what's wrong because
Yeah.
they're assuming that the other person is going to get upset, and they may get upset. But how is it then corrected? Because if we don't ever say anything, then how
Mhm.
do we
Mhm. And
correct the
you
situation?
know, And I'm going to answer this based off of my experience. So I can't say what everybody else's is. So let me answer the question based off of mine. I feel that sometimes women think that they know exactly what a man wants instead of just asking him. Most of the time, we actually state it, and you may miss it. Like, so I'm going to use my last relationship. That no matter how beautiful that I told my wife that she was, um, that she felt that she was not beautiful due to some things that happened in her past. I literally would give her a genuine compliment, not because the fact that she was my wife, literally a genuine compliment to say that this is how beautiful that you are. You don't need this, you don't need this other stuff. Now, if you're going to use it only as an accent, but but you truly don't need it because your skin is just that beautiful. uh, Due to past hurt, she couldn't hear that. So we have been passive because the fact that we want peace. One thing that a man wants above everything in his life is peace. And he will sacrifice every single thing to maintain his peace. And I think that's where the Bible is so profound in when it talks about a relationship and it talks about argument and talk about nagging, when it says that a man would rather be on a rooftop than in the house with a nagging wife. That's a powerful statement because we will go and get where we find peace at. And so, and in that, you may see it as we're being passive. It's actually our wisdom not even to even go there because if you're not hearing us, then no matter how much that we sit there and in a heated debate with you, it's going nowhere because you're not listening to us. And that's where I said earlier in some of our other shows is that you have to speak to your spouse in their language of understanding, their language of comprehending. If not, then you always going to have a level of miscommunication. Yes, everything that you can measure with very well. I'm not knocking that, but when it comes to the things that really bother you, um, you can have a miscommunication there, and also listen to the woman or the man that's in your life when they say that this right here is perfect. I love this right here. Those are little nuggets that I think that we miss sometimes, and we shouldn't miss. So but definitely we're not passive. We just want peace, and in that we just be quiet sometimes because there's no sense of even just going back and forth. And I can definitely say this. I learned that from I learned that from my mom. My mom is a very gracious person. She's a very quiet, and even in her most heated or biggest disappointments, I think that her example of humbleness and meekness is something that I consistently remember in my mind. I even had a conversation with them that I asked them, "How did y'all last this long? What is it that make you guys last these daggone 47 years?" Like, I'm interested to hear when Dr. Bennett speak about how that she's lasted 57 years. I'm interested in that because that's a goal that I have, to actually be in a relationship for that long. And it just goes through the test of times, through all the arguments, through all the disagreements, through all the growing and maturing together. These years you have been together, it's very powerful.
Amen.
Um, okay, so in saying all of that, and that's a perfect story, but in the imperfect world, because we are imperfect, and if it worked that way, we wish that it worked that way. But the reality is, people, the flame goes out because people are not communicating the
Oh,
truth.
Yvonne, I forgot this one thing. It's also a statement that I used to say. Don't ever ask a question that you're not willing to face the truth about.
That's
Don't
true.
ever ask a question that you're not willing to face the truth about. Because if you want the person in your life to be honest and completely trustworthy with you, you have to be able to accept the ugly truth.
That's right.
That's true. That's true. So that's where my question came from, because a lot of times we're not truthful. We find it hard to say how we're really feeling. Even women, we'll see certain things and we'll just hold it in. But the truth of the matter is, when we hold in our feelings, it surfaces up years later. So we talked about, people who have been married for, just because they've been married for 30, 40, 50 years doesn't mean that they've been happily married. They've just been happily peaceful because nobody is saying anything to the other person. But then one day the person snaps and now they're like, I don't want it anymore. So now you have gone through hell and back. we done finished raising the kids. We done did all we gonna do. And now you tell me, and we all know that we know people personally who have gone through this, I don't want you anymore. 25, 30 years later. Well, why? Well, because you let yourself go. Okay, I let myself go 25 years ago because I've been consistently doing this for 25 years. So you could have told me 25 years ago that you wanted me to look like this, or you wanted me to be like this, or I gained that 75 extra pounds 25 years ago after I had the children. So you could have been honest with me because you've been looking at me all this time. My gut was hanging over my belt, dear, 20 years ago. You could have said that 20 years ago. You didn't have to wait until then. I've been controlling all throughout our marriage. I've been difficult all throughout our marriage. I've been depressed all throughout. You've been dealing with this stuff, and then all of a sudden, 25, 30 years later, I don't want you anymore. The flame is out. No, the flame went out years ago. Yep. So what we want to talk about is, how do we keep that from happening? How do we keep the honesty and the trust in the relationship to where we can communicate how we feel, and we're not holding on to it, and we're not afraid to say it, so that it just doesn't go bad? Because I can say, even in my, Isaac put his relationship out there, his broken relationship, I did the same thing. I stayed with someone for years. And every day I would look at this person and go, oh my God, here we go another day. I'm dreading it. Not because this person may be a horrible person, but I haven't been honest with how I feel. So now every day, and if you're like me, my facial expressions say everything. Yeah. So the person now is going, why are you looking at me like I stink? Why are you looking at me like actually, and I'm like, straighten up your face, Yvonne. Straighten up. But
you just made a very powerful statement, because being transparent, I was the cause for my relationship to actually end. Okay, so let's start there. I was the cause. So when we had a conversation about it, and I thought that we were over it, I kid you not, we went on an entire, I want you to hear this, after we had the conversation about it, 4 years went by and there were no issues at all. I'll never forget it. It seemed like that the 5th year to the date, it's like that something came up. And I asked the question, where did this come from? Because this is not, we were just on a 10-hour flight together. So how did this happen from the time we boarded the flight to the time we landed? How did that happen in 10 hours? And we were sitting side by side, but what it was is that, just like you said, a lack of communication, a lack of saying what it is that you feel. So I went 8 years of dealing with something that I should not have been dealing with, if it had just been spoken to what the issue was. If it had just been spoken and said, hey, I'm not completely over this issue. Can we revisit this issue, please? And this is the reason that I feel this way, because I did this and it made you think, or it made it seem like that I was still doing that. And simple communication is so powerful. And to this day, I will never forget the phone call that I got that expressed to me exactly what the issue was. And this was my answer. it's too late because my feelings are no longer with you. And I meant that sincerely because for 7.5 years, I dealt with something that you literally could not be honest with me about. And only thing I asked you repeatedly, what is it that's wrong? And that was the only answer that I needed. And it kept being nothing. And then out of the you not speaking your truth, it came outburst in areas that there shouldn't be any outbursts. We on family vacations and we looking at you like you're like where that come from? And it's all come from the fact that you just couldn't speak what your truth is. And keeping the fires is speaking the truth. Truth will go a long way in a relationship. It really will. And let me stop talking. Hey, we got some other people.
No, that's really good. I think about it because Pastor and I, we have been together for 32 years and married 30 years. Of course, we don't have nothing on Dr. Bennett. But I will never ever forget the way that I used to be when we started dating and the self-care that I took. And I will never ever forget. I want to say, no, we were in Fayetteville or either Panama. And I played the game. My toenail polish was chipped. And I said, and I was like, I have a baby. I'll get to it whenever, I'll just walk around with chipped up toenail polish. And I will never, ever forget. He said, I never seen your toes look like that before. I said, that will be the first and that will be the last time that I ever hear anything like that again. So I took that. I didn't take it as an insult because, it was something that I used to do. So why isn't it that I still can't do it anyway, even though
Right.
you do have a child? It's all about adjusting, time management, the things that you did or how your spouse found you. That's why I say whatever you did in the beginning to get your spouse or what you did, continue to do it. And not only that, but build upon it. But I think what happens is that people get comfortable
Yeah.
and it's like, well, I got them now. I don't have to do all that I did before. Well, guess what? You got to do all that you did before and then some.
And some.
Because
And some.
you can look at, this is what we did in the beginning of our relationship and it kept the flames going. Well, it can be to a point where you need something more because us as human beings, we can get bored and tired of the same old, same old. Let's add a little bit more to it. Well, we did this the last time. Well, let's add this. And that's something that we have to do. We have to remember that just like time is changing, and when you look at time changes, you look at how style changes, everything is always evolving. And that's the same thing with a relationship and keeping the flames going, is that it's constantly evolving. We cannot get complacent in the relationship and, oh, I got them, they ain't going nowhere. Absolutely not. Because that right there can be bothersome to that other spouse.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Dr. Bennett?
I agree. It is based on communication. And I like that testimony coming from Pastor Melanie. You have to start the way you want to end up. That's a checkpoint. And I learned that at a very, very young age in my marriage. My husband was stationed in Fort Hamilton in New York. And my husband used to always come to my mom's house to eat. So he figured I was a cook, but I didn't know how to cook. My mom didn't teach us how to cook. And he loved the fried whiting fish. And so like, wow, this girl can burn. I couldn't boil water. So here we now stationed in Fort Hamilton, and we have one child, Yvonne, and now I have to cook. So I didn't know what to do. So I went to the commissary and I got this fresh broccoli, I think it was. I got rice. My mother don't eat rice. So I didn't know how to cook rice. And I got a steak. I knew she did something, put it somewhere in the stove, but I didn't know where. And she put something red on it. I did what I thought she would do. When I presented that meal to Ed Bennett, he sat down and he tried to cut through the steak. He tried to bite the rice. I don't know what he tried to do to the vegetable, but he said to me, "You have to learn how to cook because this is not good." And like you, I didn't take it as an insult. I called up my old Aunt Lee and I said, "Aunt Lee, you got to give me some tips." And I just began from that point, and we started from there. Anything you feel, anything you need to say, you say it. He knows what my pet peeves are, and I know what his pet peeves are. When he started with this little belly, he know I don't do belly. I do not. You cannot. You have to zip your lip. Don't eat dinner for 4 or 5, but belly, I don't do. He don't do belly. He don't do thighs. We don't do 50 pounds. We have that communication. And it's good because it's personal between us. My husband likes thin, and so do I. We are in agreement with that. I do not. I don't like beard all down the face and the goatee thing. Don't do it. We communicate. He don't like short hair. Hey, if you can't sew it, if you can't grow it, sow it. That's it. We are in communication. Communication means everything. He knows how I like him to look and act, and vice versa. So the communication is very important. We don't have those kind of issues. We have to keep that fire burning. And in addition to knowing what each other likes. My husband don't like shopping. I do. Well, we make up for that because he will go. I golf somewhere I want to be with him, and we share that. But we have a great communication, and it's only because we weathered that first storm. Now I had a choice. I could have blew up. I could have gotten indignant. I could have done a lot of things, but I took that thing to heart. I was young, and here we are. And little did I know, I am, and I think my daughter can attest to this, I am a gourmet cook. It's a gift that God gave me. It was inside, and I didn't even know I had it.
Well, I think that, and that is a given when we get together. I've watched my parents, work, together on things. I think that a lot of times we try to work together, but it's always those unspoken things that destroys the relationship. It's not what we do, is the unspoken. I ask,
So true. So true.
Why don't you say something? Because, and it goes back to something that Isaac said, I just really want peace. But is the peace more than what you really could have in the relationship? Yeah. And I think that that's where we get stuck. It's like, okay, if I say it, because some things are hard to address. It really is. I was in a relationship where the person I was in a relationship with had a really strong bad body odor. Mm-hmm. And it was really bad. Okay, I'm saying it on Facebook. Isaac, stop laughing. And I'm using that as an example because how do you address that? How do you say to
easy? Easy. Okay, let me have some transparency here again. I had a lady that I knew that had the same issue. I had another lady to break it down so that she could understand it.
But you should be able to address. But you should be able to address all these. I like that, and some of the things you said, Dr. Isaac, it was just so profound, and Lady V as well, and Pastor Butler. But listen, you should be able to address any issue. If you know that something irks your partner, you should be able to address that. And I don't want to be gaudy, but I'll be gaudy for a moment.
Mhm.
I am a person that if you use the restroom, you should make sure that you spray, that you do. I mean, we have more than one bathroom,
Exactly.
but that's a discomfort for me.
Yes.
And likewise, so we do that. We
Hey,
make sure we shut the door, which means I just used it. We,
yes.
we, we clean it up. We do whatever we have to do. But you should be able to address that because it's the little foxes that spoil the
That's
vine.
true.
That's
That's true.
right.
You have to be so sensitive to the needs of others because unspoken things can turn into a monster. And I like something
That's
Lady
right.
B said about working together. That's when that little glitch came in when we started in ministry. As long as we were working, putting money together, that was cool. Sending our daughter to, private school, that was cool. You got to pay this, you got to pay that.
Mhm.
But when we started working in ministry, it was a whole nother look. And we had to address those issues. I'm a person of affirmation. So I would like for you to say to me that praise and worship was good. Or if you don't say that, if you don't I don't want you to lie, but I want you to say something. If it wasn't good, be able to come to me and say, I think you need to tweak this. That first song was good or something. But don't go to other people and say, oh my goodness, that was awesome. And you overlook
Right.
all of the things that I do. Now that is taboo for me. So that had to be addressed. And now he knows. He learned from that.
Yeah, that's a very valid point because also you have to go back to what a person's here, especially when it comes to hygiene. You have to go back to what a person's history is, what they, what they were taught
right
about hygiene. One of my best friends told me, he said, "Ike, you're probably one of the cleanest dudes that I know. I've never seen anybody that's particular like you are. And just like you, Dr. Bennett, I'm particular to the bathroom, to everything, and not only that, but I am particular to my own body odor because I'm like you. I don't like smelling I don't like smelling body odor neither. So I'm particular to my own body odor, and if I smell myself, I often say that if I can smell myself, somebody else smells me.
That's right.
So, but I am so meticulous when it comes to hygiene, just cleanliness, period. Cleanliness, period. And yes, I do know that there are time periods that we out working and sweating and stuff like that. Yeah, that's different. But I'm speaking of that, but just a natural body odor. And even shucks, even when you're out sweating and working out in the gym, you can still have a pleasant sweat scent. I'm just saying.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
And that's true. That is true. I think that, those areas of communication definitely but I think that has to be somewhere in the dating process, because you can pick up those things as well.
Because sometimes men and women both hide things during the dating process.
True. That's true.
Let's be honest. And that's where now in dating that I'm on a whole different levels.
Yeah.
What does Stokely say? Levels. I'm on
you find out some things. You do.
Because of the fact that I know what it feels like for someone to hide their entire identity. I know what that feels like.
Well, I don't even know if it's hiding your identity more so than when you meet someone, especially, and I'm just going to keep it real, when you get in your 50s, okay? Because there's a difference in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s and in your 50s. In your 50s, you would like to assume that people know better. So a lot of times dating in your 50s is a little bit different. I can think back in my 20s and there's a lot of things that I just didn't know to ask, in all fairness. So I wouldn't think to look for hygiene and finances, just you just don't think about it. When you're younger, you just don't look to ask those questions. But when you've been on the face of the earth for over 50 years and you have gone through, and I like how Isaac puts it, especially when you're an expert on divorce, you like, okay, wait, let me step back, because apparently I'm not communicating like I should, and I'm missing it. So now you really look for those things. You're like, okay, wait, all the red flags are there. You
Yeah.
look for it. And those are the things I think that when we first come on board, we miss the anger issues. We miss the outbursts.
It's true.
We miss the rudeness. We miss how we don't look for that. We don't look at, okay, if I said this to him and he snapped out, he could have some anger issues. We miss it. But when we get older, it's like, no, you can't just say anything to me. You just can't do anything. So it's a difference, in how we handle things back then. Now, those who have been married for a long time, and I commend you that you have been with the same person forever. You have worked through the process. You have worked through diligently 57, 32 years of working things out. Not saying that you haven't gone through those different stages, because I'm sure you have time to sit down and talk about it. You can say, oh, well, we've gone through this, we've gone through this. But we're talking about people who decided that one day when they saw the flame go out, it stayed out, and now they didn't know how to rekindle it. So those are the things that we have to look at. Now,
I got a question for a Dr. B. So I think back when you came up in your generation and during the years during the decades that you came up, there's a lot of racist things that was going on back then. A lot of slavery type mentality was still going on back then. And I'm speaking of from the time that you was born, even up until the point that you got married. I look at what my parents went through of their upbringing, then them being very young in their marriage and the tribulations and the trials that they went through. How did you and your husband go through the process of dealing with the craziness of what has happened through the enslaved time period? How did y'all deal with that and overcome it?
Well, it wasn't, to tell you the truth, it wasn't a major, because my husband was brought up in the South. So he had more of an encounter with it than I did. With me being raised the way my parents raised me, in a mixed neighborhood and so forth and so on. And when people ask me this question, have you ever been, discriminated against and so forth and so on, I have to tell them I never felt that. I never felt that growing up, because, I went to an all Jewish high school and so forth and so on. I was never turned down from a job and hired by whites. And I never worked around a lot of black people, to tell you the truth. It's the white people that actually gave me the push and caused me to make it to the point where I am right now. Of course, God, but white people. So with my husband being brought up in the South, it was a little different. So, we really didn't have to weather those kinds of storms. When my husband made a transition to come from Alabama to New Jersey, and he always had a good job. He started on Wall Street and so forth and so on after the military. So he never encountered that racial slave mentality either on a job. He's always been able to get a job in management all the way up until the time he retired. So we never had to weather those kinds of storms. So here we are. We never really had to. And I know when people say, you mean to tell me you never felt prejudice? I have to say, no, I didn't growing up. I didn't. I went to school with blacks, whites, and never, ever had a black teacher. All of my teachers were always white, from grade school all the way through high school. I never had a black teacher. And I never felt that discrimination. Where I felt the discrimination was from the blacks. That's where I got my knocks from.
Because you
Because
spoke
people,
differently.
yeah, because especially with me being the type of person that I am, I always wanted to achieve something. I started college late and kept on going. I got my bats from black people, not white people.
Mhm.
So I want to ask this question. So we talked about intimacy and we talked about versus sex last week. And I think the biggest flame that goes out is in that area, because and that's where we talked about, what you did to get the person,
Yeah.
you have to do to keep them. So when we talk about keeping the flame, that's a big issue because we start off and I'll talk about the ladies, I'll let but we start off sexy. We do. We start off sexy. We start off knowing what to wear. We start off knowing what to do, what to say, the whole 9 yards, how to smell, and everything. And then it all goes downhill some kind of way. We now what we used to wear to bed would be really cute nightwear to now we dress common and ordinary. We make one. That's a
It's
good
true.
word. I'm going to say common and ordinary. I'm just going
That's
to
being nice. You
whatever
being
you
nice.
Just
consider
say,
common and
hey,
ordinary.
hey, old man, keep it real, keep it real,
Okay, so
keep it
we
real.
come to bed. We have on flannels. We have on t-shirts that are big. We come with a lot of stuff. Then we have these things called do rags, not scarves, but do rags. And the do
I think that
rag
it's
is
the bonnets now.
I'm
It's
just
the
telling
bonnets
on
now.
the ladies, okay? I'm helping us out today. So now we have it tied in such a way. It's not a fashion statement. It's just to the front, to the back, and that's it. And then we have the little snack bag that accompanies us in the bedroom. Our eyelashes come off, and all of our beauty just goes to the side, and that's how we present ourselves at time. Or these bonnets that we put on. I don't know what category, I'm just saying. And so now we come to bed and we want our wonderful, wonderful king to adore us. And
Okay.
he looks over and he goes, "Oh my God."
Well,
You went from princess.
Who is this?
I'm gonna tell you I am so happy you brought this up. And one thing I can say, let me say for me, I have never ever wanted to look any kind of way in my home and for my husband. Absolutely not. When I go to bed, I want to make sure I look good and I smell
Oh,
good.
good.
that's right.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. Even when I change the sheets, and back then we used to put my mom taught me to put baby powder on it
Yes,
so that when you went
yes.
in the bed still smelled
Smells
good.
good. That's right.
But I have never ever walked around with holy clothes,
Mm-mm,
holy underwear, holy
mm-mm,
bras,
mm-mm.
none of that. And I think in my mind, I'm like, if I did not look presentable to myself,
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
then how in the world can I look presentable to him?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And that has never been my motto. I don't care if we're not going anywhere
Yeah,
and we're just lounging. Guess what? It's going to be a cute outfit
that's
or
right.
it's going to be something
Even when you
cute.
cook. Mm-hmm.
That's right. So that, and my thing too was, is that if I had to pick up and run to the store, I don't have to say, oh, well, I got to go and change or I got to get
Mm-mm.
dressed. I always wanted to look presentable. And I actually taught that to my children and even to Jemima. I'm like, no, don't walk around looking
Mhm.
any kind of way. You still want to look decent,
Yeah,
still want to look
yeah.
presentable. You want to smell good. Don't
Mhm.
nobody want to be around that. And
Yes.
and my thing has always been, and two, my mother has always said, don't go out looking any kind of way, because back in the day and even today, women run out the house with rollers on, rollers in their head, the bonnet on.
Okay, let's stop there. The slippers.
Hold
The
on, hold on,
slippers. The
hold on.
slippers, ladies, are not
Right,
fashion.
for
I'm telling you
I
now.
don't
outside.
know. I don't
It's
know because
not a fashion statement.
they got these fashionable slippers now. So hold on.
They're
No,
slippers. They are slippers. Slippers are
they're
meant for the
slippers.
house,
Slippers are supposed to be worn
for the house.
indoors.
Okay.
Thank you.
They're not fashion statements. Do
Okay. So
rags
Crocs are
No.
not.
are
So
not
Crocs are not
fashion
considered
statements.
Okay.
slippers.
I have a question. Dr. Isaac, did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. Yes,
Okay.
yes, 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 you
Okay.
did. But I also
Um,
want to say this. It's awesome that Pastor Mel said that. What's also key is what your man likes, because that's who you are doing it for, your man. Now, if your man wants something less than,
mhm.
then also you owe him an explanation of say, hey, babe, I
Right.
understand that you don't, that you don't require this,
Right.
but you are my king. I want to do this for you.
Okay.
Even though that you're doing it for yourself, because we know first
Exactly.
you need to fulfill yourself first before you
That's
never fulfill
right.
anybody else.
Right.
So always keep that in
Right.
mind.
Right.
So, but you just said, babe, I wouldn't look. I care about how I present myself to my king.
Right.
And men, we should be saying the same thing for our queen because yes, I'm the one that want to go to bed fresh. I want to go to bed with the dash of cologne on to make sure that I'm smelling good because I like to wake up smelling good.
That's right.
Right.
There are little things that you can do to just give the appreciation of your spouse. And then we know during the night you naturally sweat and all that. And but it just helps keep it just help keep everything pleasant, but we owe that to our spouses to explain to them, especially when they require something less than what
Hmm.
Yeah.
you would want to do.
I have a I like the way Lady V described um, what some women do. Now, I have a question. What happens? How does one get the fire into the relationship, so to speak, when they have accepted from the beginning the do-rag and the flannels and the this and the that? And now midstream, all of a sudden, they want lingerie, they want pink from Victoria's Secret and so forth and so on, speaking from the man's perspective. But she's been allowed to do this
Mm-hmm.
for a long period of time, and now here he wants to change how she's been allowed to do it, because that thing does work both ways. I have clients like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Where
I'm
So
going to say,
so
this
so
is what I'm going to say. I'm going to go back to something that Pastor Mel said. I don't do what I do for anybody other than me. So when
That's
I was
right.
going,
but they do it for them because this is what they're used to.
I've been the same way, and my mom's been with me all my life. I've been the same way since I've been a little girl.
Right.
I've always been prissy. I've always taken care of myself. It's always taking me. If anybody that know me, it takes me at least 2.5 hours to get dressed.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm slow. I got to do my hair. I got to make sure everything is intact. That is me. I've been
Yes.
this way all
And me
my
too.
life. So if you are the type of person, because everybody don't require prissy.
Right.
So I'm going to say for me, thank you, Derek. I'm going to say for me, if that's not the type of person you want now, and that's not the type of person you married, then it's not fair for you now to change that. But
Right.
if she started that way
Right.
and she changed, then
Right.
that's something different.
Exactly.
But for
Exactly.
me, I believe that you should look at what that person does when you first get with them, because you already know what you're signing up for. If you
That's
know
right.
that you hitting and missing, you see her one day she got her hair comb, one day she don't. You see that sometimes she cleans, sometimes she don't. You see that sometimes he smell good, sometimes he doesn't. There's no consistency. Then what's going to happen is then you can't come into 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years and say, oh, well, you've been doing this, now I want you to change it.
Right.
No, they weren't doing that from the beginning.
Right.
You got to see
Yeah.
the beginning,
Yes.
because it's hard to change something in the midstream.
That's right.
So that's why it's important that you talk about it. You talk about it. You see how a person is, how a person carries themselves. If you don't want me, if you want somebody that can get dressed in 15 minutes, I'm not it. I can't do it. I'm never going to be that way. I remember when I was a little girl and my dad used to leave me. And I would have preferred taking the bus than to speed up, because he was going to leave me because I was slow. I've been slow all my life. So if you want that 5-minute person, I'm not it. I'm like Pastor Mel, I gotta get my hair together. I'm not gonna just throw on anything. I don't go out in my bedroom slippers. I don't go out in my do-rag. So I don't go out without my eyelashes. It's a lot of things I gotta put on before I go out in the world.
But
I've been like this all my life. And I
um,
just feel that what you do, you should do for you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm speaking, and you answered the question. I'm speaking for those women that have been allowed, because there are some girls that have
Yes.
never been, educated on how to take care of themselves or how to be prissy and so forth and so on. So I'm speaking for those
We
ladies.
actually gave that answer last week, to be honest with you. It comes when we say that there's a checkup, because you do change. You change. And I think that when there's a shift in us, we owe our spouse to inform them about the shift that has happened
Right.
in our life. Say, hey, babe, I know that you were very comfortable at doing this, but I've noticed that there's some things about me that have changed, and I'm realizing that I no longer like this.
Yeah.
And we, male and female, have to be acceptable when a person says that this is now a shift in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to
Exactly.
be able to accept that, because they just told you something that if you ignore could possibly be an issue.
That's right.
And I'm so
true.
happy you
That's
said
right.
that. You're absolutely right. Because, and there are times in a relationship, yes, the spouse may have liked the spouse this way, but then like you said, as time evolved, wait a minute, you know what? I want to do, I want to change things up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Want things a little bit different. And if it's something that the spouse wants to introduce, well, honey, I was out shopping and I thought about you. I thought about you. What about putting this on? Now, if the spouse rejects it and, oh, no,
Who have you been
well,
looking at?
because
Exactly.
that's exactly
Who you
what's
been
going to
looking
come up.
Where you get that from?
That is going to,
Right.
And
That's
Yeah.
gonna
then
happen.
that's where that checkup is going to have to come in. And you know what? That's not anything that I'm looking at, but this is something that I think I would like,
Yeah.
or, you are my queen or you are my king. And this is something I would like to see you in.
Mhm.
Hey, let's take hey, what you think about this? And encourage. Here it
Yeah.
is, encourage, and then see where that encouragement goes.
Yeah, I know my husband, he likes and with our busy schedule and with me in my study and him in his study, and I go down to the sunroom to watch TV sometimes. He don't want to see me coming up with a scarf or a plastic cap. No.
Right.
I come dressed and I sit on the bed, because he watches TV upstairs in the bedroom lounge, and I come dressed, sitting on the bed, hair done, makeup on.
Exactly.
And when it's time for him to turn that TV off, then I get up, take the makeup off, and so forth and so on. Because I know you have to be able to communicate. You have to know what your spouse likes. And it's so important to keep that fire burning, because when that fire goes out, it's hard to find the right
Right.
light to lit it up again.
That's true. That's true.
Right.
That is so
Right.
true.
You
So
can
true.
search. You can search all over. You know, you go buy this cologne and you go buy that dress and this dress. It's hard. You can't let it go out. It can go down a little, but my God, you got to
Don't
make
let it go
sure it
out.
don't
You're
go
right.
out.
Don't let it go out.
You
Don't let
gotta
That's
it go
right.
You're
out.
right.
Keep
you
that
gotta
fire
keep it.
burning.
You gotta keep it lit. You
In
gotta
spite
You
of,
gotta keep
because
it
let me
lit.
tell you, even in spite of me going through treatment, I still made sure I looked presentable.
She sure
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
yeah
I was not
yeah.
gonna look any
In
kind
her
of
worst.
way.
In
That's
her
what I'm
worst.
saying. Yeah, I can't. You know, because
No.
my thing is, like I said, if I don't like looking like that to
Right.
myself,
No,
you
Right.
this
know,
child was
what is
this child was
somebody else,
in hey, she
really?
was in labor. Telling me, I gotta wash my face, I gotta go do this, I gotta go do that. I'm hurt, but I gotta go do all this before I go to the hospital.
That's
Exactly.
it. That's
Exactly.
me.
That was me
And let
and
me
that was
tell
me and
you,
Yvonne. Got to make sure our
yes.
nails
Do
was
you
done,
remember?
our feet was done, our hair was done. We ain't going into labor looking any kind of way.
In the
Absolutely
hospital
not.
with satin and silk on.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
We
But
were.
but the thing about it is you care about you. And that's the
Yes.
thing. You're gonna reap the person that you're with is always gonna reap the benefits.
Bits of it, that's true.
But
Yeah.
when you care about you to the level you care about you, you're going to care about the other person.
That's right.
You're going to treat the other person the way you care about you.
That's
So
right.
that's what people don't understand. If they have step with them, well, they're going to have step with you.
That's
You
it.
want them to
That's
treat you
it.
better than what they
That's
treat
it. That's it.
themselves. No, if I treat myself like high class, you're going to reap the benefits. You're going to get treated like high class.
That's right.
But if
That's
I
right.
throw myself a biscuit here and there, well, you're going to get a biscuit too. That's
Pastor Melanie, I appreciate that statement because when I came out the coma, I was asking, how do I look?
Right, right.
I was in the coma for 5 days. I don't know how I look.
Exactly.
How's my hair?
Let me tell you.
Let me get some mouthwash. I want to go
had
take a shower.
surgery. I don't know if mommy remembers when I had surgery. And I don't know. I think it was, I'm not going to put her on blast, but it was one of my children. I'm not going to tell you who she was. But when bought me some little nightwear that I would never wear. I would never, it had flowers on it, all this craziness. And so the first thing I said was, my mom is going to correct this when she gets here, because I was bedridden. And the first thing she said when she got to my house, she said,
It's true.
what is that you have on? Somebody take me to Victoria's Secret. So,
it's true.
Crazy. And I had to be on bed rest for 8 weeks. You know what I did for 8 weeks? I had a mirror in front of me.
Yes.
On the and I learned 100 different ways, Pastor Mel, how to put on eyeshadow every single day.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm combing my hair, and I'm like, the nail technician came to my house to do my nails, because I'm like, I'm not going to recover correctly.
Right.
I recover better when I look.
Let me say this
in the defense
of the men. Let me say this in the defense of the men. We do need to know how you look naturally without everything, because we don't need to be shocked when we do see.
Oh, of course.
We do need to see that, because there's been too many times that with this makeup game they got going on today. Look.
Well, you have an opportunity to see us look natural when doing those intimate times.
No, I'm saying before we get there. No, I'm talking about before we get there. No,
before we get there.
Before we even cross the line of intimacy, I'm talking about doing the actual dating.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but there should be times where we don't. I mean, I'm not a real big makeup person, but you should be comfortable and not having your eyelashes on.
Yes,
exactly.
All that.
Groomed properly. You should still be groomed properly.
Yes.
Because I'll definitely say this, and I want all ladies to understand this about men. All ladies understand this about men. We know, or we have an idea of everything you do. Exactly. Thank Derek. Thank you, Derek. Exactly. Exactly, Derek. Exactly. But we know what extent you go through to look beautiful. We got that. We definitely got that. Okay. But let us see you in your natural state so that when we do get the natural state, it's oh, what's that? Who you? Hold on, because you do know that hey, there was a guy that divorced his wife because he never saw her naturally, and when he did see her naturally after they got married, he divorced her, annulled the entire because he's like, that's not who I married. I never saw that person. Who is that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I agree that that you should be able to see a person how they
Yes.
look naturally,
Yes.
but you should still be groomed.
Right. Right.
Exactly.
You don't
Yes.
have to be made up, but you should
Yes.
still be groomed.
Right. Yes.
Because
That is
I don't need to see you ungroomed because then I get
Right.
scared.
that's
Right.
true.
Right.
Well,
I get scared that you might practice that.
oh my God, this has been such a great topic. But y'all know what? It's 5 o'clock.
Wow. Time flew by.
So we've been
It
talking, you
did.
have been watching Breaking the Silence. You have a voice, and we've been talking about relationship rules. And today we were talking about how you keep the fire burning. So if you missed it, you can go back, you can watch it on Facebook, YouTube. I know we are on the Caribbean stations now, so you have all kinds of platforms that you can watch us on. We thank all of our viewers for joining us today. I am your host, Lady V. We have your host, Dr. Yvonne Bennett, Pastor Melanie Butler, and Dr. Isaac Davis on with you today. Until next week, we want to say enjoy the rest of your week, and always remember, you have a voice. Bye now.
Bye.
Right.